And I gave up this trip of a lifetime just to protect a job that I ended up leaving anyway. Welcome to From a Woman to a Leader, the podcast for ambitious leaders in tech who are ready to grow their confidence, influence, and leadership without burning out or pretending to be someone they're not. I'm your host, Limor Bergman. I want to tell you a story that even after so many years, I think about it. And it was earlier in my career when I was still a software engineer. So I was an engineer. I was very ambitious. I worked really hard. And I was always moving teams because I wanted to learn new technologies. I wanted to challenge myself. I was doing everything you're supposed to do to grow, right? And one day, a good friend of mine told me, hey, Limor, I'm going on a trip. Like it was an adventurous trip to the Far East for several weeks. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was several weeks to, I think it was Thailand and Nepal. And she said, come with me. And I was so excited about that. I mean, I really wanted to go. I wanted to have those experiences of going away for a long period of time and just enjoying. So what I did, I went to my manager and I asked, can I take time off? I wanted to go on a trip for a few weeks. And his response really surprised me because he basically said, and not in the exact words, but he said something like, if you go on the trip, it can jeopardize your career progression, maybe even your place here. Again, he didn't say in these words, but it was kind of hinted. And, I was so scared because, as I said, I was very ambitious. So I just told my manager, okay, I won't go. And I chickened out. And I told my friend, sorry, I can't go with you. And she went and she had a great time. And till this day, I don't have a lot of regrets, but this is one of those. Because looking back, I was in my 20s. I didn't have a family. I didn't have children. I didn't have a spouse even. And I could do everything I wanted. And I chose out of fear not to go to that trip. And what makes it even sadder is that not too long after that incident, eventually I left that job anyway. Because that manager wasn't working for me. After that conversation, I felt so discouraged, so unsupported, that eventually I decided that this company is no longer the right place for me, and I moved to a different company. And I gave up this trip of a lifetime just to protect a job that I ended up leaving anyway. And that's something I wish I had known sooner in my career. Taking care of myself, taking a break that I needed, would have been important for my well-being, and setting boundaries with my manager and saying, yes, I need that vacation, would probably earned me more respect than just chickening out and saying, okay, I won't go. And that story is just one small example, because over the years, I saw those patterns in my own career. I realized that being nice all the time, saying yes to everything, always being available, is not appreciated in the way we think it will be. And to be honest, it creates the opposite effect. I was raised to be a good girl, do what I'm told. I was a very good girl, I was a good student, I was a good employee. And with every manager, I always said yes, I was always available. And even after I got married and I became a mom, I remember that when my first daughter was born, she was 6 months old and I was traveling internationally every single month. 1 month to Japan, 1 month to San Francisco. I was working late and never picked her up from daycare. I barely spent time with her. I was coming home late. And where did it get me? To appreciation? To recognition? No, quite the opposite. I was being taken for granted. I was actually very frustrated at that time. I was even considering leaving that job. Eventually, I stayed because I wanted to expand my family, and only when I was 8 months pregnant with my second child, there was an opportunity for an engineering manager, which eventually I took. And then when I told my manager, hey, I found a different management position, only then he suddenly started offering me a management position under him. But it was too late for me. I didn't want to work with him anymore. And that taught me a very, very hard lesson. That always saying yes and not setting boundaries made me less appreciated, not more. And it actually hurt my career more than setting boundaries would ever have. So let me name this pattern clearly, because I see it again and again, also with women that I coach. When you say yes to everything, when you never push back, you don't signal dedication, you signal that your time is not valuable. Because if you don't value your own time, why would anyone else, like your manager or your peers or stakeholders, would appreciate it? Think about it. If you're always available, you're always saying yes, you're always doing more than 100%, more than a full-time job, what happens? Everyone gets used to it. And that becomes the baseline. And then, when for some reason you can't keep it up, all of a sudden your manager is complaining why you're not doing all the things that you're used to be doing. That leads to burnout, to not being appreciated, and to be taken for granted. And I'm saying that from personal experience and from witnessing a lot of women, a lot of my clients. And what I work with my clients is helping them, first of all, see that paradox, the paradox of giving and giving, saying yes, while at the same time being taken for granted. And then we work on how to start switching that. And I'll be honest with you, it's not easy because, when everyone around you is used to you always saying yes, you have to start flipping that record. And when you start doing that, when you start setting boundaries, when you challenge people, when you are only focusing on the most important and impactful thing, people start thinking, oh, this person is important. She's not available to do just anything at the moment. And that actually raises your value in the eyes of other people. And the women who get ahead aren't the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who are clear about their priorities, who protect their time, and who are known for the quality of what they deliver and the impact, not for their availability. My guest in this week's episode on Wednesday, Rachael Edmondson-Clarke, told a story that was an extreme case of what saying yes and being always on can lead to. She worked so hard. She gave so much. She was always the one to turn on the lights in the office in the morning and the last one to turn them off at night in the building with over 500 people. She delayed her wedding twice because she was too busy at work, and she didn't even think about it as a problem at the time. And eventually, what happened? Her body said time out. She literally collapsed on her office floor from a panic attack. She couldn't think. She couldn't breathe. Not setting boundaries didn't just hurt her career. It impacted her personal life, her health, her body, her relationship, until she physically couldn't take it anymore. And eventually, she had to reconsider everything she was doing, and she decided to leave corporate altogether and being a business owner. And Rachael said something that I really resonated with and I wanted to share with you. She said, rest and restoration are not reward for hard work. They are critical input to you being able to show up and perform at your best. Rachael, unfortunately, learned it the hard way, and you don't have to. And you know something interesting? Rachael also talked about her mom, who ran hair salons and was the only woman on the board of directors back in the 80s and 90s, right? And how did she lead? She was kind, she was fair, and she didn't take any shit. And that's what Rachael said. She set boundaries and was deeply respected. So those two things are not the opposite. You can be kind and you can still set boundaries and be firm. You can care deeply and still say no. But how do you actually do it, right? It sounds simple, but it's not so easy. I know that. I know that personally, and I know that from the work I do with my clients. So let me just share with you some things you can do. So first of all, identify if you are a people pleaser. I highly recommend you to take the saboteur assessment. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's free, and you can find out if one of your saboteurs are pleaser, or maybe you're an avoider like me, you avoid conflict. Those two saboteurs can be a strong indication that you're not setting boundaries you need to set. And ask yourself, when am I saying no? And to whom am I saying no? If the answer is almost never, or to almost no one, that can be an indication that you're not setting boundaries. The second one is when someone reach out, when someone asks you something, first pause and ask a question. And I know it's hard, right? I mean, it's hard to say no. I very much relate to that because it was very hard for me. Rachael actually shared a very practical advice in the episode. And I also suggest my clients to do that as well. When someone reaches out to you with something urgent, instead of like dropping everything and saying, yes, I'll do it, ask a question, a simple question. When do you need this by? That's it. One question. Because sometimes if you're being asked to do something, it may not be actually that urgent as it feels to you in that moment. Now, I know from a fact that a lot of times you will be told it's super urgent. I know that because I faced that too in my career, right? Either from my manager, from product managers, from stakeholders. And you ask, when do you need this by? And say, now it's super urgent. Still, you can challenge. The best way is to challenge by asking questions. Like, for example, you can say, okay, I'm currently working on XYZ. Is what you're asking me more important than those priorities? Another way to ask is, what would happen if I get to you tomorrow or in the next 2 days? You're kind of trying to assess the impact of not doing that immediately. And challenging doesn't mean that you're a difficult person. It just helps your stakeholders think through how urgent something really is. And you will be surprised that often the answer is, you know what, tomorrow will be fine, or in the next 2 days is okay. The third thing is something also I like, Rachael shared that, and I like to do that with my clients, is calendar audit. So look at your calendar, let's say from the last few weeks, at least a week, but ideally more than a week, and assess what is taking up your time. Especially if you're in a leadership position, if you're managing people, you probably have a lot of meetings, right? I mean, that's expected. But you have to be really ruthless about your time. Your time is the most valuable asset you have. All of us have the same amount of time, no matter what is our role or how much money we make. So ask yourself, do you really have to be in every meeting? If someone invites you to a meeting, do you just confirm? Or, you have an opportunity to ask, hey, do you really need me in that meeting? And if you do, which part? Sometimes it can be a long meeting. You can ask, can we start by whatever you need me for? And then I can leave the meeting. That's another tactic. Start challenging the people that need your time, because maybe you don't have to be in all those meetings. The other thing is maybe you need to delegate some of the work that you're doing. And those things will free up your time. Like Rachael said in the episode this week, she was busy in meetings all day long. So the only time she had to do actual work was after hours. And that's why she had to stay late and be the last person in the office every single day. If it sounds familiar to you, that's not a scheduling problem. It's setting boundaries and prioritizing. Fourth tip, turn off notifications. So another great tip that Rachael shared in the episode is that she turned off all the notifications on her phone except for her immediate family and private clients. Everything else, she said, she gets to when she gets to. And those, nowadays we have those constant notifications always on, and those are really getting in the way of your productivity. And it's perfectly fine to put in Slack or Teams or whatever, you're using that you're away, you're unavailable, that you're in a meeting, that you're in focus time. That's perfectly fine. Let people know that. And tell them, if I'm unavailable, it means I'll be available later, and don't interrupt me. Think about this. How quickly are you responding to every Slack message, every email? Start getting people used to the fact that you are not always on. Block the times when you need to focus and protect your time. And believe me, people will appreciate you more. And I want to summarize by saying that something that I really hope that will stay with you. You don't need to work harder to be appreciated and to progress in your career. You actually need to work smarter. You need to set boundaries. You need to focus your time on the most important and impactful things. And you need to say no to a lot of things, or say later, or challenge people when they come to you with something they say is urgent. And when you do that, you will be more proactive, you will be more productive, you will make more impact, and you will be more appreciated. Because think about it, if you're setting boundaries, if you're challenging people, if you are only focusing on the most important things, people are going to think, oh, this person is very important, because you're not available to do everything anyone wants you at any given moment. And that actually raises your value in the eyes of other people. Rest is not a reward for hard work. And this is something Rachael mentioned in the episode this week, and I really resonated with it. Rest is the foundation that lets you show up and do your best work. So here's what I want to ask for you. What's one boundary you have been avoiding setting? Just one. And what would happen if you set one boundary this week? Think about it. And if you want to share, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't listened to my conversation with Rachael Edmondson-Clarke yet, go back and listen. Her story, I think, is going to stay with you. She lived through what happens when you don't set boundaries, and she came out the other side with completely different life. The link is also in the show notes. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you next week.